Yeah, I do. I do get nervous. Yeah, but I was excited about the music. I don't want to, just focus on them, John.
In 1978, Diane Keaton stood on stage holding an Oscar. What nobody knew was that she had just undergone cancer surgery and was heavily medicated. She remembered almost nothing from that night. Over the next 40 years, she would have more than 20 skin cancer surgeries, suffer from osteoporosis caused by starvation, and watch her only brother spiral into madness while she sent money instead of help. She never married. She rejected motherhood until it was too late. And in 2025, at 79, she was found alone in her mansion, unresponsive. The life she lived was nothing like the one we saw. Diane Keaton was born on January 5, 1946, in Los Angeles, but she was raised in Santa Ana, California. Her birth name was Diana Hall, and she was the oldest of 4 siblings. Her father, Jack Hall, worked as a civil engineer and later sold real estate. Her mother, Dorothy Diane, had once dreamed of being an actress, but never made it to Hollywood. Instead of bitterness, Dorothy passed that dream to her daughter, turning their home into a stage for imagination. Dorothy would gather the kids and perform dramatic readings while Diane soaked up every word. They weren't rich. Jack worked long hours while Dorothy stretched every dollar, but they made sure their kids were surrounded by art, theater, books, storytelling. It was all part of daily life. Diane picked it up quickly. At just 5, she turned their living room into a runway, wearing her mother's scarves and jewelry while narrating pretend scenes. She charged candy to her siblings to watch. At 7, she started staging backyard plays with neighborhood kids and cast herself in every lead. One time, when she was 8, she even got her dad to build her a wooden stage in the garage, with curtains made from old sheets. She sold 5-cent tickets to the other children on the block and performed movie scenes she memorized from weekend matinees. Her mother took photos of all of it. These weren't just games. This was training. In high school, Diane joined the drama club at 14. She also discovered she could sing. She loved performing, but hated the in-between. Off stage, she was quiet. She often ate her lunch alone in the girls' bathroom just to avoid having to sit with others. At 16, she developed bulimia, but she kept it hidden. Nobody knew. Her family didn't notice. She still acted in plays, still joined the choir, and still signed up for yearbook photography. Another habit inherited from her mother. She wore odd clothes, vintage hats, long skirts. She didn't dress like the others and didn't seem to care. That's when she stopped being Diana Hall. During a school play, she decided that name didn't sound like someone who belonged on stage. She took her mother's maiden name, Keaton, and it stuck. That small moment of reinvention was the start of something bigger. She wasn't just performing anymore. She was becoming someone new. At 19, she dropped out of Orange Coast College and bought a one-way bus ticket to New York City. It was January 1965. She had 2 suitcases, $200, and her mother's blessing. She enrolled in the neighborhood playhouse to study with Sanford Meisner. Tuition was $1,800 per year, a huge expense for her family. They took out loans to help her do it. Her first performance there was a disaster. She froze, forgot her lines, stood on stage silently for 45 seconds. She threw up backstage. She kept going. She got a job as a singing waitress, making $50 a week in tips. The winter that year was brutal. Temperatures dropped to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. She lived in a 5th-floor walk-up with no heat, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. She ate bagels with cream cheese because they cost 15 cents and lasted her through the day. She took whatever acting roles she could find. One of her first was as an unpaid understudy in a small off-Broadway play called Miss Margaret. She didn't care about the money. She just needed a way in. In 1967, she got her chance. The musical Hair was about to debut at the Public Theater, and Keaton was hired as an understudy for $125 a week. But just before opening night, the lead actress quit. Diane stepped in. The role required full nudity during the controversial Be In scene. She was 21 and terrified. On opening night, she stood topless in front of 300 people while the crowd roared and clapped through 17 curtain calls. She smiled on stage, but cried in her dressing room afterward. The play ran for 1,750 performances. She was earning $175 a week by the end, finally enough to afford a small apartment of her own. But not everything was right. During rehearsals, the director had called her pudgy and warned her to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks or be replaced. That night, she bought $12 worth of junk food and binged for 45 minutes before forcing herself to throw up in the theater bathroom. That was the start. For the next 3 years, she binged and purged sometimes 4 times a day. She lost 15 pounds. Her gums bled. Her stomach hurt constantly. Her teeth began to erode. But nobody knew. She hid it from roommates, friends, and even her directors. She learned how to purge silently while running the shower. In 1968, she took a gamble. She turned down a 6-month contract extension with Hair to star in a new play called Cop Out at the Court Theater. It opened in April and closed just 5 weeks later. Critics destroyed her. One paper called her shrill. Another said she didn't belong on stage. She was 22, jobless, and owed $800 in rent. Her weight dropped to 98 pounds. Her bathroom scale became an obsession. She weighed herself 15 times a day. She kept pretending everything was fine, but it wasn't. Her luck changed in 1969 when Joe Papp gave her a chance at the Public Theater. He cast her in a workshop of Bertolt Brecht's The Caucasian Chalk Circle. She was paid $100 a week, but she didn't care about the money. She just wanted a role. The workshop ran 72 shows to small audiences. Joe Papp noticed her skill for physical comedy. She could improvise in ways others couldn't. She made people laugh without trying. But behind the scenes, the eating disorder still ruled her life. She carried a scale in her purse and weighed herself 10 times a day. Nobody knew. She said later, this was the lowest point in her life, succeeding in public but falling apart in private. In 1970, she got her first film role, a bridesmaid in Lovers and Other Strangers. It lasted 3 minutes. Nobody noticed. But 2 years later, everything changed. Francis Ford Coppola was casting The Godfather and couldn't find the right actress for Kay Adams. Al Pacino, who'd seen Keaton on stage, asked Coppola to consider her. She had no major film credits, and when she read the script, she thought the mob references were restaurant terms, but she got the part. During filming in Sicily in 1971, she and Pacino started dating. One day, he borrowed a production car and took her on a picnic at Mount Etna. Prosciutto, wine. That was the beginning. But the stress of filming triggered her bulimia again. She binged on Sicilian pastries, cannoli, cassata, sfogliatelli, hoarding them in her trailer. She purged in the hotel bathroom at 3 a.m. She lost 18 pounds in 2 months. Makeup artists added padding to her costumes. When the movie came out in 1972, it made $286 million worldwide. Adjusted for inflation, that's nearly $2 billion. But Diane hated her performance. She begged Coppola to cut her scenes. She told him she looked wooden and lifeless. In truth, the eating disorder had made her so tired she couldn't focus. She didn't go to the premiere. She didn't watch herself on screen. She didn't even remember filming parts of it. Her brain was fogged by starvation. In The Godfather Part 2, her role was larger. The courtroom scene with Michael Corleone became iconic, but it took 20 rehearsals and 12 hours of shooting. When Coppola yelled cut, she collapsed. Paramedics were called. People thought it was exhaustion. It wasn't. She had purged 3 times that morning and was severely dehydrated. She weighed 98 pounds and was 5'7". Costumes had to be altered daily. By 1976, she was making $200,000 for a film. That year, she starred in Harry and Walter Go to New York. It flopped. Critics said she looked distracted. The director later said she missed cues and forgot blocking. What nobody knew was that her bulimia had reached a crisis point. She couldn't think straight. Her memory was fading. Her moods swung wildly. She almost quit acting. She called it her lost year, and she meant it. When Woody Allen started writing Annie Hall in 1976, it wasn't just another screenplay. It was a mirror of the life he had lived with Diane Keaton. They had met in 1970 and spent the next 4 years together. Their bond a mix of affection, humor, and conflict. Even after breaking up in 1976, partly because Keaton wanted children and Allen didn't, they remained close enough to turn their history into art. The character Annie wasn't fiction. Her last name, Hall, came from Keaton's real name, Diane Hall, and her quirky style of baggy pants and men's ties was copied straight from Allen's wardrobe. Scenes in the film came directly from their conversations, even their fights. Keaton absorbed so much of Allen's mannerisms that friends joked they couldn't tell where Annie ended and Diane began. For this deeply personal performance, she earned $75,000, far less than male leads of the time, but the impact would be far greater. On April 3, 1978, at the 50th Academy Awards, Keaton, then 32, won Best Actress, beating Jane Fonda, Anne Bancroft, Marsha Mason, and Shirley MacLaine. Just weeks earlier, she had undergone surgery to remove basal cell carcinoma from her nose, and she wore a high-necked black turtleneck under her Ralph Lauren gown to hide scars on her neck and chest. Her speech lasted barely 32 seconds. "It's simply terrific," she said, thanking Alan first, while the cameras caught him looking uncomfortable. Annie Hall had been made for $4 million and grossed $40.2 million in the United States, becoming the third highest grossing film of 1977. The lobster scene, shot in one take at 2 a.m. after 17 failed attempts, became one of the most quoted moments in movie history. But behind the smiles, Keaton was falling apart. She was battling severe bulimia nervosa, consuming up to 20,000 calories a day, about 80 Big Macs, and forcing herself to vomit 8 to 10 times daily. The disorder had started in 1975 and worsened during Annie Hall. She binged on boxes of cookies, gallons of ice cream, loaves of bread, then purged until she bled. Her weight swung wildly between 95 and 140 pounds. The disease destroyed her esophagus and teeth, and by 1979, she needed major dental work. On Oscar night, heavily medicated with anti-anxiety pills, she remembered almost nothing, saying later she felt completely numb. After the Oscar, Keaton made an unexpected choice. She rejected Louis Malle's Pretty Baby, 1978, which later starred Brooke Shields, and became infamous for its child nudity, and instead took Looking for Mr. Goodbar, 1977. It told the story of a deaf teacher leading a double life of cocaine use and dangerous sexual encounters, ending with her being stabbed 18 times by a man she meets in a bar. The violence pushed the film into an R rating. Keaton admitted she connected to the character's death wish. The movie earned $22.5 million but drew mixed reviews, with critics saying she looked uneasy in the explicit scenes. Her isolation grew worse. She stopped attending Hollywood parties, spent nights alone in her Los Angeles apartment binge-eating, and rejected most scripts that came her way. In 1978, she tried to return to the stage with The Cat's Meow at New York's Public Theater, but it never made it past early readings. Despite being Hollywood's newest Best Actress, she didn't appear in a single film that year, a rare pause in an Oscar winner's career. Instead, she entered intensive therapy, meeting 5 days a week with Dr. Ruth Westheimer. She traced her bulimia back to childhood, when she constantly compared herself to her mother, Dorothy, a size 2 beauty queen who seemed effortlessly perfect. Her brother Randy's mental illness had added more pressure. Therapy cost her over $30,000 that year. She didn't return to film until Manhattan, 1979, 18 months later, reuniting with Woody Allen. After Annie Hall, Keaton starred in Interiors, 1978, playing Renata, a suicidal poet blocked by her own mind. The role mirrored her real struggles. In 1979, doctors found her skin cancer had returned, and she underwent Mohs micrographic surgery on her face, leaving a scar near her right cheekbone that she covered with expensive makeup for the next decade. She was seeing a therapist 3 times a week at $180 per session. Interiors earned 5 Oscar nominations, but made only $10 million at the box office. Even so, Keaton's vulnerability earned her a Golden Globe nomination. In Manhattan, 1979, she played Mary Wilk, a pretentious intellectual who name-dropped philosophers. To prepare, Keaton read 50 philosophy books in 4 months, filling 12 notebooks with notes. But off-camera, she was unraveling again. Woody Allen barely spoke to her between takes, and the emotional distance triggered a relapse. During the 6-week shoot, she binged on an estimated 12,000 calories worth of pastrami sandwiches and purged alone in her apartment. The irony was painful. She was playing a woman obsessed with appearances while secretly destroying her body. The film grossed $39.9 million, Allen's highest until Hannah and Her Sisters. Reds, 1981, took her to another level. She was paid $1 million to play journalist Louise Bryant, opposite Warren Beatty's John Reed. Beatty demanded realism, so Keaton spent 6 months in Montana learning horseback riding, even fracturing a rib after a fall. The 3-hour epic required 14 months of filming across 4 countries. But the emotional cost was heavy. In November 1980, Beatty rejected her romantic feelings, calling their relationship strictly professional. Keaton's bulimia spiraled again. Over 3 days, she binged on 8,000 calories and collapsed on set in Finland from severe electrolyte imbalance. She was hospitalized for 72 hours. Despite the trauma, she earned her third Oscar nomination. The film cost $33 million and became a critical milestone in her career. During Mrs. Soffel, 1984, she portrayed Kate Soffel, a warden's wife who helped 2 condemned men escape in 1901. She spent 8 weeks working with dialect coach Robert Easton, paying $12,000 to master a Pennsylvania accent. Filming began in September 1983, but 3 weeks in, doctors found a 2.3-centimeter squamous cell carcinoma on her neck. Production halted for 14 days, while she underwent surgery requiring 47 stitches. She hid the wound under high collars and scarves, telling the crew she had bronchitis. The fear of recurring cancer made her consider quitting acting altogether. Baby Boom, 1987, offered a glimpse of the future. She played J.C. Wyatt, a Manhattan executive who inherits a baby and discovers motherhood. 9 years before adopting her own daughter Dexter in 1996, the $15 million film earned $26.7 million, a modest success. But behind the scenes, her health costs were mounting. During the 12-week shoot, she continued therapy with Dr. Susan Forward at $200 per session, 4 times a week. Dental work for bulimia-related damage cost $18,000, and combined with nutritionists and hospital stays, she spent $50,000 on medical care between 1985 and 1987, often paying in cash to hide the expenses from her accountant. Her relationship with Al Pacino began in 1972 during The Godfather and lasted 5 years. Pacino proposed backstage during The Godfather Part 2 in 1974, but Keaton said no, afraid of losing her independence like her mother. She revealed that during their relationship, she purged after nearly every dinner they shared, trying to control her body amid Hollywood's pressure and Pacino's intense presence. They broke up in 1977, a split that devastated her. Pacino, she later said, was the great love of her life. Her relationship with Woody Allen, starting in 1970, was unconventional. They even attended joint therapy sessions where Allen analyzed her abandonment issues. Their romance ended in 1980 amid rumors of his infidelity, but Keaton kept photos of him in her home until her death, a loyalty that became controversial during the Me Too era when Allen faced abuse allegations. Some friends stopped visiting her because of it. Keaton defended him, calling their relationship the most intellectually stimulating of her life. Dating Warren Beatty from 1978 to 1980 took her into Hollywood's most glamorous circles, but his reputation with women sent her into depression. At the Reds' wrap party, after watching Beatty flirt with several actresses, Keaton ate an entire 3-tier wedding cake in a frenzy. She was hospitalized that night, officially for food poisoning, but friends said it was stomach pumping after a binge. Beatty admitted he wasn't ready for her emotional needs, and they split soon after. In the 1990s, she briefly dated architect Steve Bannon in 1995, but ended things over political differences. Instead, she focused on motherhood, adopting Dexter in 1996 at 50 and Duke in 2001 at 55, raising them alone in Beverly Hills. In 1998, she secretly underwent basal cell carcinoma surgery on her arm, wearing long sleeves for months to hide it. Becoming a mother at 55 was groundbreaking, and Keaton later called it her greatest role. Her refusal to marry was shaped by her mother's warning: "Don't sacrifice your career for any man." That advice guided her for decades, but it came with consequences. In her 2020 memoir, Keaton admitted that years of bulimia caused severe malnutrition that destroyed her fertility. By the time she wanted children, natural pregnancy was impossible. The disorder also weakened her bones and aged her prematurely, requiring extensive dental work. Adoption was her only path to motherhood, and she called losing the chance for biological children her only real regret. During the Annie Hall press tour in 1977, Keaton hit her lowest point. Her nightly ritual involved eating an entire bucket of KFC, 3 frozen dinners, and 2 pies, then vomiting with ipecac syrup, a dangerous substance meant for poison emergencies that can damage the heart with repeated use. She suffered esophageal tears and chest pain, but kept the habit secret. In 1967, at just 21, she had her first basal cell carcinoma removed, and by 2025, she had endured over 20 skin cancer surgeries. One mid-1980s operation required 100 stitches on her forehead, leading her to wear hats constantly, a choice that became her trademark. In 1990, doctors found squamous cell carcinoma on her leg, requiring radiation that left permanent scars and forced her to cancel the First Wives Club reshoots. The pain triggered another bulimia relapse. In 2005, a tabloid mocking her weight led to a 24-hour binge purge episode totaling 18,000 calories, nearly 9 days of food in one day, risking fatal heart failure. Even decades later, stress and criticism could trigger episodes. By her 70s, the long-term damage had caught up with her. She was diagnosed with osteoporosis, a result of malnutrition that had prevented proper calcium absorption. In a 2023 interview, she said she feared the sun every day, haunted by childhood beach trips without sunscreen that likely caused her cancers. The anxiety was so intense, she avoided daytime events. Decades of eating disorders and repeated cancers left her with fragile bones, scarred skin, and constant medical supervision. She said her body had betrayed her repeatedly, but she remained grateful for surviving what had killed many others. Randy Keaton started acting strangely when he was just 10. His family called it the other side of normal, but deep down, they knew something was wrong. By 1968, doctors labeled it bipolar disorder and schizoid personality disorder. Still, the Hall family didn't do much. They were ashamed of mental illness and stayed silent for 2 full years. Nothing forced action until 1970, when Randy showed up for a draft physical for the Vietnam War. During the exam, he told the psychiatrist he was thinking about ending his life. That one moment changed everything. He was deemed unfit for service, and the military report became the first solid proof of his unraveling mind. That late diagnosis became the first missed chance in a long list of what-ifs that would follow him and his sister Diane Keaton for the rest of their lives. As Diane stepped into the spotlight during the late 1970s, her brother's world kept getting darker. Around the time she won her Oscar for Annie Hall in 1977, Randy began sending her letters. But these weren't normal letters. They were filled with violent, disturbing fantasies, most aimed at women. He included handmade collages, too, cutting up pictures from magazines to create twisted images of mutilated female bodies. Diane never told the police or doctors. She kept them hidden in a box for decades. She later admitted that not speaking up was one of her biggest regrets. While she was walking red carpets in Los Angeles, Randy was falling deeper into a pit back home. And that gap between their lives became something she never figured out how to bridge. The 1980s crushed Randy completely. He turned to alcohol, lost his marriage, lost his job, and ended up living in his parents' basement in California, alone, jobless, and spiraling. Diane sent him money, sometimes $10,000 at once, but money couldn't fix what was happening inside his mind. She visited when she could, but Hollywood kept her busy. In 1989, she came home and found him catatonic. He had tried to kill himself by swallowing a bottle of pills. He survived, but the damage was permanent. That visit shattered any idea she had that she could care for him from afar. Fame, money, and good intentions weren't enough. She finally understood that. By 2010, Randy's brain had slipped beyond the point of return. Full-blown dementia had taken over. He was moved to a facility in Santa Ana that provided 24-hour care. Diane, now older herself, visited every week. She would read his poems aloud, dark verses he had written during the rare times his mind was clear. They couldn't talk like they used to, but the poetry was a fragile thread that kept them connected. In 2020, Diane wrote a memoir called Brother and Sister that put everything on the table. She called her own mind a kind of hidden crazy, and for the first time, admitted how much of Randy's torment she saw in herself. Behind the makeup, the awards, and the designer clothes was a woman trying to stay upright while carrying a lifelong burden that nobody could see. Randy died in 2024 at 71. Diane was the only one left. Their parents had died of cancer in the 1990s, their dad in 1990, their mom in 1995, and now she was alone. No siblings, no backup. She said it felt like she had been carrying 2 bodies for years, his and her own. She had her health problems too, and with each year, it got harder. She never stopped asking herself the same questions. Did I do enough? Did I wait too long? Did I let fame come between me and the only person who needed me most? When he died, she didn't just lose her brother. She lost her last chance at doing it right. Back in 1996, Diane starred in The First Wives Club alongside Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn. The film made $18.9 million in its first weekend and $181.5 million worldwide. It proved older women could lead box office hits. Diane said it was the first time she felt part of a real sisterhood. But even in that glow, Randy was always in the back of her mind. In 2003, she did Something's Gotta Give with Jack Nicholson. She was 57 and had to film nude scenes, which terrified her. Years earlier, a Broadway director had told her to lose weight for hair, and that triggered bulimia. At its worst, she ate over 20,000 calories a day, then purged. Therapy helped her recover, but those old wounds never fully healed. Being naked on screen wasn't just about skin, it was about every shame she'd ever buried. In 2016, she played Sister Mary in The Young Pope. It was her first time at the Venice Film Festival with a TV series, and the show even got Emmy nominations. People praised her performance, but she was never chasing awards. She was chasing peace. That peace slipped again in 2020 with love, weddings, and other disasters. The film flopped, earning just $922,586 and getting a brutal 3% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Diane knew it wasn't her best, but sometimes actors take roles to pay the bills. In 2023, she did Maybe I Do with Richard Gere, 46 years after their first film together. The reviews were lukewarm, but Diane brought something real to the role. Memories of Randy, of loss, of love that never got returned. She had always said she never married because she was drawn to talent, not to kindness. She dated Warren Beatty, Al Pacino, Woody Allen, but she said none of them were the kind of man you build a life with. She didn't think she had the nurturing instincts either, but she did want kids. In her 50s, she adopted Dexter and Duke. She said it was the best decision she ever made. Her battle with bulimia lasted decades. Therapy 5 days a week helped her pull out of it, but it stayed with her like a scar under the surface. In her final months, friends said her health declined fast. Her last Instagram post was on April 11, 2025. Showing her dog Reggie for National Pet Day. She'd adopted Reggie in 2020. In March 2025, she listed her Brentwood mansion for $28.9 million, a home she had bought for $4.7 million in 2009. That move made people worry. She loved that house. Selling it meant something had changed. She never turned on Woody Allen, even as the world did. In 2018, when everyone was distancing themselves from him, she tweeted her support and shared a link to his 1992 60 Minutes interview. She called him family. That loyalty cost her friends and peace, but she never backed down. On October 11, 2025, Diane Keaton was found unresponsive at home in Brentwood. The fire department came at 8:08 a.m. and took her to the hospital. She was 79. Producer Dory Rath confirmed her death to CNN. Her cause of death hasn't been released. She'd battled skin cancer in her 20s and had surgeries later for squamous cell carcinoma. She never fully escaped the effects of years of bulimia either, but we don't know if any of that played a role in the end. She left behind an estate worth around $100 million, built not just on film, but on real estate flips that made her millions. She once sold a Laguna Beach home for $12.75 million that she bought for $7.5 million. Another home in Pacific Palisades gave her a $1.3 million profit. In 2020, she sold a Tucson property for $2.6 million after buying it for $1.5 million. She was smart with her money. Her children, Dexter and Duke, are her legacy now, and the world noticed her passing. Bette Midler called her hilarious and original. Leonardo DiCaprio called her a legend and a kind human being.